Wisconsin neighborhood. Someone was asking me, they ask me all the time, what's this word? What is this word, Chautauqua? Well, it really, it's just it's an Algonquin word, okay? But what it means actually was the bringing together of moccasins is what it actually meant. But it was adopted in the late 1890s, early 1900s for a movement of, what were these, traveling through vaudeville communities to come to the Maple Taker, for example. And basically, it was a combination of arts and culture and lecture and music and civic conversation, guided discussions. And when we were talking about doing this, some people talked about the idea, we talked about a town hall, a summit, and it all just didn't convey the sense of community that we wanted to convey. So, Chautauqua doesn't most people either because they don't know it, but we're gonna use it because it means something. And words that have a better meaning, words that are more precise. The writer starts nodding immediately. Precise words. Looking for precise words. All right, let me just welcome you first of all. This is the day we're going to dig in deep. Now, we're not going to get to dig in as deep as we want. We only have 3 hours, 3.5. Notice on the schedule up here, this is a planned schedule. I want you to know that it's very important to us that what we come forward with out of this is something that is born from you, not something that we lead you to, right? We want this to be something that you all feel like we can carry forward. Okay? And we're not going to solve the world's problems today. We're just going to get the ball rolling. So we're starting out at first. We're going to have a comedian who's going to share with us in a minute, and then we're going to have what's called 3 questions, and that's the format that I came up with, which is just we're going to ask a bunch of questions around one prompt and figure out which 3 questions we need to try to come up with answers for today. Not answers, but potential answers for it. Okay? Just a way to structure the idea of gathering ideas. That's what that is. Then we're going to have a panel of folks who are actively participating in communities or living in and around communities that are dealing with data centers directly, data center construction. So you can get a little perspective on that. They're going to have some breakout sessions. And you'll have 2 breakouts. There'll be 7 different presenters, I think it is, that you can choose one from each of the 2 20-minute sessions to go dig in deeper on one subject. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we're going to come back together, and we're going to hear from Ken, who's going to share a story with us in 2 parts. Do you want to do it in 1 part, or do you want to break it up in 2?
Let's break it up.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, make it a cliffhanger for us. And then we're going to come back. I call it cross-county conversations. We're going to try to, what I'd like to do is take our 3 questions and split them up into 3 areas and have different groups of people kind of look at some of the questions that have already been asked and kind of work together to determine some potential ideas for how to answer those questions. That's kind of where I'm at. But I'm open to ideas that you have for how we structure that, right? If you have any ideas and you want to share them, please feel free. But right now, is she here?
Yeah.
Laura?
Right there.
I would like to bring up from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. She has experience as a sketch writer. She used to work on Prairie Home Companion as a writer. She's worked for the Brave New Workshop and Upright Citizens Brigade, right?
Yep.
In New York.
Yep.
Welcome, Laura Buchholz.
Thank you guys so much. I'm Laura Buchholz. I live in Eau Claire. I also do stand-up there, so you can see me there anytime you're on the Plus. So welcome. Thanks for being here. 3 questions sounds like a drinking game where someone's going to end up embarrassed. So I don't know if you guys knew what you're getting into, but there will be shame. There will be shame. Hi everybody. I'm not going to ask you guys how you are because this is the Midwest and someone might actually answer, and then we're going to be here all day. I might be here all day anyway. And this place is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I almost feel like it's too beautiful for what we're here to talk about. Given the subject matter, it kind of undermines the sense of urgency and dread. And I feel like Blaine, next time maybe check out a dumpster behind a quick trip. That's maybe where we should be. Godspeed. But this is gorgeous. I love it. It's gorgeous. Yeah, so we're here to talk about the rapid proliferation of large-scale data centers. Yikes. And a lot of people are like, well, we've never really been here before. This is an unprecedented thing. Yeah, maybe. But let's go back a little bit. When Darth Vader built the Death Star, he also told everybody that it was inevitable. The Death Star is inevitable, and they believed him. I think about like the council that had to sign off on the Death Star. Some like space council, right, of elected space persons, and that's a tough call. You know, someone brings a Death Star to you to evaluate, and like how did that go down? Because well, how did that get passed? Because Darth was not subtle. He called it the Death Star. He's like, here's the Death Star, rubber stamp. Like, really, what happened? Did they not ask questions? Here's the Death Star. What is it? What do you make? What do you make of the Death Star?
Jobs.
Is it jobs? Is it death? I'm getting to that. Is it death? Yeah, it's death. Okay, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Yeah, it's death. So what comes out of this? Is it death also? Yes, it's all death. It's all death. So how many jobs does it create? 15. There's 15 jobs. Yeah, we're gonna have 15 jobs at the desk. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. We're all on board with this. Actually, it's 14 jobs. 14 jobs. Still good. Still good. You know what? It's actually 14 temporary jobs. It's 14 temporary jobs. Yep. You know what? Industry, we like it. Keep going. 13 temporary out-of-state jobs. We're still good. We're still good. They're actually slaves. Yeah, good. All right. Fine. Rubber stamp that Death Star. What happened? What happened? I don't know. And then that Space Council like really kind of painted themselves into a corner because they said yes to this thing, and now they're going to have to spin it to a constituency that knows what the word death means. They know. What are you going to do? How are you going to spin that? And the answer is, you don't. You just build it and hope nobody notices. And that's what they did. So my friend Wayne last night, or the other data center, my friend Wayne, who's watched more Star Wars than I have, told me that there were actually 3 Death Stars in the Star Wars franchise because they kept blowing them up. They kept blowing them up because they didn't like those Death Stars. I didn't know this. So there was the first Death Star, that blew up, so they built the second one because they didn't have any other ideas, blew that one up, and then they built the hyperscale third one, also blew that one up because it turns out that knowing more about the Death Star didn't really warm people up to the idea of it. I'm not suggesting anyone do anything here, by the way. I'm just saying, not suggesting anything, but like, those people never liked it. They never liked it. Anyway, so now we gotta fight this fight, I guess. We gotta fight this fight. And it seems like in Wisconsin, we might be well situated to fight this fight because our state animal is the badger, which is a fierce and fearsome mammal. It will fight. It will fight anything for any reason. However, our state chair is the recliner. And so now we're in trouble. We're in trouble, right? We are definitely in trouble. Listen, like, right now, in Osseo, Wisconsin, there are 35 people dead in their recliners who won't be found until November, right? And there are like another 65 people waiting to die in their recliners because that's what recliners do to you. They reduce your drive and your fire, and we can't have that because what we need right now is people who want to fight and fight like a badger. I have found out the hard way that one of the easiest ways to get, let's face it, men in their recliners to jump up and fight is to tell them to get rid of the recliners. They will fight you to the death. They do not want to do that. But that's what needs to be done. And honestly, guys, there's nothing hotter than a man who willingly gives up his recliner, just looks at it and says, we're not doing this anymore. Oh my goodness. So anyway, ladies, you know what to do. You know what to do. Go forth. Go forth. Another fun thing about this time is that like people are coming together from left and right in a way that we haven't in a very long time. So we get to actually like hang out with our neighbors in a way that doesn't involve a cage match. And again, people are like, oh, this has never happened before, that we liked, or that we agreed on something that we can get behind. But I don't know if that's true either, because have you guys seen Facebook Marketplace? Have you seen it? Everybody likes Facebook Marketplace. I love Facebook Marketplace. I'm kind of a habitual marketplacer. And I've had a lot of reason to be on it lately because I sold my mom's house in the last couple months, and so a lot of stuff going out the door through Marketplace. And I don't know, if you guys have been on it a lot and done a lot of stuff, like when you get people who do it right, it is so lovely. Like when you just list something and then they come at the appointed time and they pay you what you ask and then they leave, it is beautiful. It is so beautiful. So that happened to me a couple times at the end of that phase. And honestly, it felt romantic. And it felt romantic when it happened. It's like, oh my God, that went really well. Like, do you guys want to buy something else? Do you want to come in and buy something else? Okay. No, but we should go to dinner. Maybe we should go to dinner. That was nice. That was nice. Because the normal Facebook Marketplace transaction is something more like this, right? You list something, someone says, yes, I'll come get it at, let's say, 5 o'clock in the evening. I'll come get it at 5 o'clock. And then 5 o'clock comes and goes, and then you're at 6 o'clock, and you get a text that says, I had to go to urgent care. And this happens actually a lot. There's a lot of Facebook Marketplace people who need to go to urgent care. Sure you did. It was urgent care. Okay. Look, I'm worried about all these Marketplace people who need urgent care. We're down a hospital already. We can't have this. We can't have all this urgent care. It's gotten to the point now where, like, when I list something on Marketplace, I know that, like, one of us is going to go to urgent care. It's probably going to be you. And so what I do now is, when I list something, I take myself to urgent care first, just so that I can be good, to be there to sell you this chair. So that's what I'm doing. I'm actually going to go to urgent care right now because I have something on Marketplace I think might sell. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much. And again, thank you for coming. And I'm going to hand it back to Blake.
Thank you, Laura. Very cool. Do they have it Tuesday nights at the Plus, Laura?
What's
Is
that?
it Tuesdays at the Plus?
Tuesdays is open mic.
Tuesdays at open mic at the Plus in Eau Claire. Laura's there frequently. So is Soren Staff from that Coolie Boys who was singing last night. He's there pretty frequently as well. And DJ Aniki is dated up here. There he is. He's there sometimes too. So you can still, there's so many talented people in this area. There really are. All right, I'm going to ask our panel to come up and take a seat. We have enough chairs here. All right, I need this. All right, so all of these folks either live in or are highly involved in the activities going on in the communities where data centers have either been.
I like you more than
Yes, I understand. I'll try not to take it personally. Either live directly in one of the communities that were affected by data center construction or proposal, or in when the construction is actually taking place right now. And we're going to meet them one by one here and then let you ask them some questions about the experience.
I'm operator.
Let's just have you right up your mic, right up your mouth.
I'm operator tonight from Pine Island, Minnesota, so I am representing just oversight on the river. We are the first injunction in the state of Minnesota, so that is a legal victory that is significant, but we're not done fighting. Yep. Thank you. Nice to meet you. And my name is Brittany Keys. I'm a doctor of physical therapy with the group Healthy Fight Wisconsin.
So I have been organizing and supporting local leaders across the state since December, really elevating the health impacts. And then in March, learned that I'm from Rock County and live in Beloit. And we had a hyperscale data center proposal looking like Meta, a lot of the same emails as Menominee. And then within the last few months, we have 4 proposals that are public.
I am Winona Storm. I am from DeForest, just north of Madison. We had the QTS proposal. They wanted us to annex 1,600 acres, build up to 15 hyperscale data centers, and through a lot of work, and some of the people on this panel who helped us, we were able to get them to go away, at least for now. So that was really exciting, and that was a victory. I have 4 kids, and I decided after the 4th one is here in the back somewhere, the little toddler running around, to go back to school. So I am in school for public policy and leadership. And when I finish this, I'm going to go get my JD because I'm really sick and tired of being in this fight and having people tell me, well, you really need an attorney for that. So I'm going to be one.
I'm Prescott Balch. I live in Caledonia, which is between Oak Creek and Racine. Sorry. I successfully led an effort in Caledonia to kick Microsoft to the curb, and have since been running around the upper Midwest trying to help as many communities as I can do the same. My particular focus is on the financial and technology risks of these hyperscale data centers in small towns.
Hello, I'm Sarah Zarling. I'm a community organizer and social and environmental justice advocate. I'm also what's known as a frontline storyteller and protector. So I started out 11 years ago when an oil train went by and I didn't know what it was, and I looked it up and saw that they could kill you. And so I thought that that wasn't something that I wanted in my community, and that led me down the rabbit hole of all sorts of things where industry is coming in and endangering people's lives and destroying the planet for their own personal gain. So whenever data center proposals started popping up in the state, that just kind of fell into the natural scope of the work that I do. So even though I don't have an active data center proposal in my community yet, it just makes sense for me in my job to help other areas however I can.
I'm gonna let them have the microphone, I can do okay here. So if you have any questions, I can ask some questions if you need me to, but I'm sure they would really love to hear questions from you. You better understand what these folks go through in these fights, in these communities. Yes, great.
Yeah, I've been, well, I think most of us were convinced that a data center is about storage of data. But I've read more about it's really a center for part of the global intent to control our minds. And a data center is like a brain that's going to take us over. And one of the reasons it's so detrimental to water is just like our cerebral spinal fluid changes constantly. They have to change the water in that data center because it's operating like our nervous system. Is that true?
Well, that was louder than I meant to. That's a really great way to look at it. It's like arteries and veins through a building with that water. And they have to mix it with forever chemicals in order to keep that water moving. Sludge is created, byproduct is created, that is toxic, and how do they dispose of it? And in DeForest, we were told that's a trade secret. We weren't allowed to know. And that was something we found with a lot of things. It was trade secret after trade secret after trade secret. We weren't allowed to know anything. So there's that component. And then there's also with the servers that are in an AI hyperscale data center, one server uses 50 times the amount of electricity as your standard internet server. Your standard internet server, meaning your Gmail, right? Your Wikipedia, anything that you're using. One server. And a hyperscale facility has 5,000 or more servers. And the components in those servers have to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. So when we're looking at all of that, it really comes down to just how much it actually requires. And we can't be looking at it with old technology because that's not what this is.
One thing I want to make sure we're clear on for this Q&A and this panel is what we want to talk about is we want to talk about what impacts they've experienced in the process of finding out about these data centers and how the data centers were thrust on their communities, whether they were in the. We want to find out that information. How does it affect those people who are in the communities? Which was the first of these that came to light? Caledonia was. So Prescott, why don't you start with how yours came about?
So mine came about because there's a parcel across the street from the power plant that's owned by the power company, and they realized they had a gold mine on their hands when the AI data center building boom started. Being right across the street from the data center means they don't have a lot of cost to spring up electrical power. So they applied through Microsoft applied through an LLC to rezone the parcel to light industrial, which just coincidentally, without revealing why, our village staff had rushed through a rezoning or a zoning change to accommodate data centers in light industrial. Surprise, just a couple months later, there was a rezoning request. And so from the rezoning request, that's when they hit the gas and they tried to take that from a rezoning request to an approved rezone of that parcel to accommodate a data center in a 6-week time period. That was the biggest problem for us. They worked on it for a year and a half, and then they were going to race it through approval in 6 months. And the challenge to the community there is, imagine, I don't know any of you, and we have to get together in the next 6 weeks and understand what's going on and how to organize and who's got the right expertise and how do we fight back, etc. It was a gargantuan task. I'm not quite sure how we won even in hindsight. But the deck is stacked against you if they want to go that fast.
Let's start handing to Sarah, please. I'd like Sarah to talk a little bit about both Port Washington and Beaver Dam and about how they came about.
So yeah, Prescott and I actually met in Beaver Dam helping that community because since he had just completed the Caledonia project and then since the data center issue just fell into the scope of work that I do, that's how we sort of bonded over being the misinformed outside agitators as we love to become you asked. So Beaver Dam and Port Washington was very different in that when I found out about Beaver Dam, that was in September of last year, and by then ground had already been broken on the project, and the community had no idea what was going on because of the NDAs. So that's one reason, that's a huge reason why NDAs just are so not okay, and the whole trade secret thing, that spans many industries, and that's another thing that we want to really encourage our elected officials to get behind doing away with, because it just should be fundamental practice that if there's going to be some kind of new project in a community, that there should be open transparency to residents about what's going on, what it entails, and all that, particularly if it's going to be a strain on their resources and put their health at risk. So, and then we all saw how it unfolded in Port Washington, where those citizens showed up in droves for weeks saying they didn't want the project, and the city approved it anyway. So, in both those cases, it's just egregious city government slamming through what they think is best and not giving any regard to the residents. And so, in the time since then, the residents near the construction sites in Beaver Dam and Port Washington have been suffering greatly, and with what they've been going through, I've sort of come up with like a tagline, I guess, for this issue, which is data center construction is the most cruel thing a city can do to its residents. and the things that are happening to residents near the construction, like damage to property and dried up wells and contaminated wells and having to send their water in to get tested and having to pay hundreds of dollars for that to do that themselves, there are no protections in place for these residents to help pay for their water or to pay for their testing or to help pay for the damage to their property. In fact, they're being told that there's nothing that we can do you can't prove that we did that. This is not our fault. So I could go on, but I won't. You get the idea. So we just really need to stop these things and make sure that our city officials are looking out for us.
How about let's hear from the other three really briefly about the very beginning of what happened.
So I'll just go if I have the mic, but into Forest. So last July, we had in town, Indiana, which is right next to the Forest, found out about a pig roast happening at town hall. I had heard about it, and I was like, maybe I'll take the kids, feed them dinner, cool. I didn't go, but somebody who ended up being one of our main organizers with me, she went to the pig roast, and that's where she met QTS. They had a couple of community things. We really didn't understand what was going on, and then in October, on a Friday morning, we found out that QTS was supposed to be submitting some proposal at 9 a.m. on a Friday. And so we showed up, they canceled 10 minutes before. They didn't show up because they found out that there were all these people. It doesn't mean they canceled the proposal. We went and kept going for about another 4 months after that. And with all of our open records requests, we were able to track back at least a year before we found out in July of 2025. They had, Alliant was kind of the beginning. We had attorneys and PR firms that were reaching out to us, kind of as a smokescreen, not to us, but to the Forest. They always knew that they were going to ask the Forest to annex, but they were just trying to look nice, and they were approaching Vienna first. And so yeah, it was going on for a long time. We were told at one point by Alliant that our land had been plotted for this 10 years prior by the PSC. So Becky Belk was at that. Becky Belk is one of the leaders in Alliant. She worked for the PSC 10 years ago.
She was the chair. So Brittany from Beloit, we learned about the data center proposal, the first one, in the township of Beloit by Dana Fulton from WKOW out of Madison, skimming DNR files and connecting same emails to emails that were connected with Menominee and Beaver Dam. She broke the story right after Valentine's Day. Otherwise, we probably would have been Beaver Dam. So we found out through these open records requests that there was non-disclosure signed from February the year before, and that the council had signed a pre-development agreement with this developer May 2025. But again, March of this year was the first anyone had heard of anything because of reporters stumbling upon it. And when looking back at the minutes of that May meeting of the pre-development agreement, it just says, closed session with Cameron LLC. And the notes from it just say they went in, and then they came out.
Really?
Yep.
You have to vote publicly, though.
Yeah, you have to come out and vote publicly.
Well, they voted to approve they did vote to approve it, but it was voting the pre-development agreement with Cameron LLC.
Yeah.
There was nothing about data centers.
Right. No.
There was nothing.
You're
You're right. So a lot of concerns with lack of transparency. And another quick thing related to Beaver Dam. One of our good friends and members of Healthy Climate Wisconsin is a neighbor to the project. She first learned that something was happening because farmers were selling their land. And she went and was like, why are these big farms being sold? And she heard Alliant Energy, one of Wisconsin's second most profitable investor-owned utilities, was offering like 10 times market value. And so you can't fault people for if they're selling that right, but she was like, what is this going to be? And so her and her mom sat in all the public meetings to try to figure out at the plan commission meetings, at the council meetings, and it was never clear even to them until Meta was already breaking ground, and then they announced it is a metadata center.
Marbury, Minnesota, Maryland. I found out through a neighbor down the street messaging me, and she found out because one of her colleagues had read a Star Tribune article that just kind of hinted that Google was potentially building a data center or thinking about building a data center near the Rochester and southeastern Minnesota area. And didn't mention a specific site, but maybe Pine Island. And so then she started looking at the city council meetings and then realized, wait a minute, we have an AUAR, which is a version of an environmental review, that was on the city council agenda, and this was in September, and the September 16th city council meeting, this is like the week before, and then she realizes this is getting voted on for approval for the final adoption, and she's reading it, and it's a technology center, and oh, wait a minute, this actually sounds like a data center, and oh, wait, the Star Tribune article that mentioned, oh, so she's putting two and two together and going, uh-oh, I think this is what's coming to our town. Wait a minute, what's going on? So kind of a similar thing. So then she talks to her coworker who lives in town. She's like, did you hear anything about this? No, I didn't hear anything about it. Talk to another coworker who's like, nope, I didn't hear anything. Talk to her next door neighbor. Nope, I didn't know. She goes, I think there's a lady who's a couple houses up the street from me. I think we need to talk to her and get her on board. And so she messages me and like, did you know about data center? I'm like, no, what's a data center? So we decided that we're gonna show up at city council and be like, slow down, we have some concerns. We're doing a lot of research very quickly to try to figure this out. 452 pages, if you don't know what it looks like, I've got it right there. Fun times. Yeah, and then we were ignored, just like everybody else was.
Oh, sorry, I just want to put a couple finer points on some of the Beaver Dam stuff. So, to complement what Winona said, it was the same thing in the Beaver Dam situation where Alliant had started up buying the land like back in like 2018, 2019. And they were very misleading about what the purpose of the land was for. And so that's one of the reasons why the residents were broadsided by the project, because they thought it was going to be any number of things that weren't a data center. And I have to give Brittany credit because she's actually the one who connected me with the young woman who learned about the Beaver Dam project with her mother. And actually it gets better. So, like I said, it was September that I met with that young woman, and that was the first time that I saw that the ground had been broken and nobody knew what was going on. And actually, I think they started building in April. But it actually wasn't until November that it was announced that it was a metadata center because of the NDA. And so when the NDA ran out, Meta held an invite-only, closed-door event to announce the unveiling that it was them that was the developer. And so in addition to the fact that the community didn't even know the project was being built in the first place, then once they did start finding out and were upset about it, rightfully so, they weren't even invited to the event where it was unveiled that Meta was the developer. So, and I could go, I swear, we could all go on about just how awful these projects really are and the great lengths that these, and we cannot let the utility companies off the hook. The developers, the utility companies, the city governments, the economic developers, like, they're all in cahoots, and essentially, yeah, it's their paycheck depends on these projects being approved, and they will stay and do anything to get what they want.
Okay, would you be willing to talk a little bit about, to kind of put a, do we want to continue this conversation a little longer?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to hear some questions.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Hi, I'm Pilar Terracimo. I live in the town of Lucas, not too far from here, and I sit now as a supervisor on our town board. I used to be briefly on the county board at that county too, and I did attend their PRD meeting where they announced not the Menominee Data Center that was kind of recently put on hold, but a new proposal for a rural modular data center. And there were a lot of people who showed up at the public hearing. Everyone standards, but 15 years ago probably. Similar NDAs, a lot of secrecy, a lot of investigative journalists, I'm a journalist, digging up stuff and trying to put stuff together. And it was equally maddening to feel like the people who were elected officials who were supposed to be serving our community were not. They were really ill-informed. And that was really what struck me. They seemed to just take whatever these people had told them as gospel. I was also struck, you mentioned energy companies. Our town is served by Dunn Energy Cooperative, which until relatively recently was operating more, I think, as a cooperative. But they, by dark of night, sort of slid a bunch of amendments to our bylaws a number of years ago, which again, I and a few other people noticed, and most people didn't, and we objected strenuously, because they seem to be taking cooperative power away from co-op members and putting it in the hands of industry-friendly folks. So you can be not a member and serve on the board. There's now an arbitration agreement plugged into our member agreement. And that was concerning before the data centers happened, but now that it's happened, I'm seeing the CEO acknowledge that he had signed an NDA with this private equity company that wants to build these modular data centers that look very dainty, but it's just a shoebox. But of course, they are going to grow and have all the attendant
There's a lot
challenges.
of, there's a lot of reasons to talk about that.
So the question that I have with that lead up is, I felt that the Downey County PRD was very content to turn over the mic to the Energy Cooperative's corporate-ish leader person, their CEO, and say, tell us more about it. We don't know anything about it, but you tell us. He has an NDA. My thing was, I'd really like to see no NDA signed at the county or any other level of officials. But what have you guys found, if anything, works to raise the specter or acknowledge that this is not how this is supposed to go? I think that there's a cluelessness in general that seems like innocence and naivete. I don't think it's ill will for the most part, but they're not seeing, I don't think they're seeing what's coming. So these types of coalitions seem to be the best thing that worked for us with the mining thing.
Yeah.
This like lather, rinse, repeat of finding experts and attorneys who can speak to this, reusing the materials that have worked in one community and another, and just raising awareness that these deserve more attention than they're getting, and more, potentially a lot more questions getting asked about them.
I think the mic's in the right hand to start this.
What has been so disappointing to me?
Did it die? I was seeing it blink, but I wasn't sure if that meant
Are we good now? There we go. What? It really dawned on me throughout this whole exercise that what we're revealing is an awful lot of elected officials that really aren't up to the task. No offense to any elected official in the room, myself included. I found an extreme passivity in all of those, in many of those roles, and they were all way too eager to just defer to the quote-unquote experts. But then you go down the list of the experts and you ask yourself the question, what's their self-interest? Economic development people are supposed to economically develop. Lawyers are supposed to rack up billable expense. The municipal finance companies get paid by the municipal finance project. So they have an incentive to do that. The village administrators, no offense to any village administrators in the room, please, but they have their own careers to look after. They're interested in doing big projects and having something to show for it, and they may think they're doing the right thing. And maybe they are, but maybe they're not. It's the elected officials who are supposed to be the representative of the people and backstopping all of that self-interest from conspiring to do something that you don't want. And that's what I've seen missing. And it's there are some fantastic exceptions to that I've bumped into as well, just to be clear. But the majority of village, town, city councils, etc., are just so passive, and they are so trusting of the experts. And it's been no end of frustration for me every time I poke into another rabbit hole on the financial side. I think nobody knows how this thing is working. Nobody's asking questions, even people who have the role.
they're not getting to the right answer because they're not digging deep enough, they're not asking hard questions, they're not doing the analysis, they're not looking 2, 3, 4 chess moves ahead. And they're getting their communities into a checkmate situation they can't get out of. And so the unfortunate conclusion to that is, be careful who you elect.
Open record request. That's
Yeah.
my big.
I was actually going to raise that point right now. What you're noticing here in the early stages is that nobody had any idea what was going on because nobody was paying attention, right? Nobody noticed there was a closed session with Cambria LLC. Nobody asked what that was, right? Because nobody was watching. Nobody showed up at that town board meeting to watch that vote, because they do have to come out and vote, right? Nobody noticed on the minutes that they signed a development agreement with Cambria LLC. That's the first thing communities need to do, is they need to get people who are going to commit to showing up, reading every agenda, reading all the minutes, and in this instance, you need to go back at least a year and start there.
I would also say, for our elected officials, talk to whoever's doing your minutes, because I know for DeForest, it says, they talked, they voted, they approved. It doesn't say who voted for what and who voted against what. It doesn't say what the issue was. There's no topics being talked about. And I would say, like, push for that, please. If you want people to engage, you want people to trust you, you want people to feel like you're protecting them, get it in the minutes.
I think the general rule from being on the planning commission pretty much is, and I'm very frustrated that there's not more information in the minutes. And I'm in charge of taking the minutes for our planning commission. I said, what level of detail do you want me to put in the minutes? So I'm used to doing very detailed minutes. And they're like, no, they've been told and advised, why don't you bring it all the way up to this level? And you don't include me beside our discussion, or really what was discussed. So that's why I attend every meeting and I take my own minutes. Because I know it's actually published in the minutes. It does not cover whatsoever, but any discussion happens after that. Question.
All right. Well, I'll give Aubrey a word quick, and then I've got someone in the back. I need to comment first.
After our legislative session, like, we tried to get bills passed specifically for MPAs, and that was the one bill that we tried to get that had unanimous bipartisan support at the state level, both in the Senate and in the House. And it was on the floor for a House vote, and then the GOP pulled it off the floor to put it into another random committee to kill it with a tie vote at the will of the chambers. So part of this is coming from the economic development side, because they're getting bribed by the corporations that don't want that information disclosed. But what we keep hearing is it's standard business practice. So you really need to dig in and get them to think critically about what is standard business practice, and then compare it to other pieces. So if you're gonna think, like, when we put our children into programs, and there's like background checks for child sex offenders, for example, what information do you want to know about somebody who is working with your kids, and why? And then, like, make those connections, like with NDAs, with your community that also involves children. And it's like, okay, would you just have somebody coming into your house with your kids and you didn't ask this type of information? And would you call that standard business practice and be just fine with it? Like, push them. Get them to make those critical connections and don't let up.
Before we move on to the next question, I just want to flag that we're definitely deviating, and that's okay. Okay? But I'm going to lean into what's happening a little bit. But what I want to make sure you know before we go further with the questions is that coming up, we're going to have breakout sessions with these folks, and Prescott's going to be talking about the financial risk factors, and Danny from Grow and Sarah are going to be answering questions and working with people who want to talk about community organizing. Okay? And Winona's going to talk about understanding the playbook, not the proposal, right? Is that what you're saying?
What's the play, not the pitch?
Yep, what's the play, not the pitch. And Brittany's going to talk about health impacts.
And protections before proposals.
Yep. Isaac, what are you talking about again?
I'm going to talk about the grid and how these projects pop up in the first place.
Right, and then Tara from the Farmers Union is going to talk about community benefit agreements. So there'll be 2 sessions of 20 minutes to be able to go to 2 of those. I was going to do one, but I think there's too many people doing it, so I'm not going to. So I just wanted to bring that up first, in case your questions are related to one of those specifically. You might want to push off to that. Laura, you've been down for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that last question kind of addressed that, because while you guys have been talking, I've been thinking about how there's legislation now after the Me Too movement where they can't do non-disclosure agreements in employment situations. So I would like, maybe for a future session, like to hear about the legal stuff. Like, I don't understand how, like, it sounds like there's a bill and it's dead, but like, we did it for sexual harassment and employment situations. It seems like we should be able to do it for this too, like no NDAs in this situation. And I'm just wondering if like standard business practice is enough and legally why, and that might not be something for this session, but like that's kind of what I'm wondering about.
I can answer some of those questions later.
Yeah. You got one more question?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on Zilda.
Yeah, Laura.
Look, I was at the same meeting, and everything she said was very accurate. The thing that I got out of that meeting was the people on the county committee were not well informed, nor should they necessarily. Now, myself, I used to design supercomputers in Chippewa Falls. So I know the power, I know the cooling, I know the density model, so I can talk to that. But when they were talking in the committee, no one seemed to know. And I wanted to interrupt and say, I can answer that. Also, I handed in a written statement that I wanted to give. It was way too long. So and I was cut short of my short one. But I learned a week later that my written statement is only for the committee. It's not for the public. Had I spoken, that would have been for the public. So they essentially stuffed the crux of what I wanted to say. So you really have to be, each one of us has to become informed ourselves and to read and study and know what you're talking about. Because the wiser we are, the more impact we can make on our local governments. And that one on the Menominee, or the Dunn County one, we're talking about a modular data center. None of them knew what it was. Well, I knew what it was. It's about 100 servers or less. And it's what you could put in a semi-trailer for the cities. Shipping. And if they get a modular data center in here, I look at it as getting a foot in the door. And then they're going to say, well, we already got one, let's do more.
You get that phone,
And they
you
did
get that
more, and all of a
permitting
sudden,
going,
we have a hyperscale data center that was started with one module. So we have to be aware of
The danger in the modulars, and Isaac dug into this because it's his township, his town that's looking at into it, Bay River. The danger with it is how quickly they can put them in, right? And that's the whole point of it.
There's so many things.
I think this has really become a new strategy for some of the companies, right? Because they don't have to wait for grid permission, they don't have to wait for 5 years to get certified. What they're doing is they're installing them in solar installations and connecting directly. Or in Hay River, they're wanting to do it next to the ethanol plant and use their substation, right? So it's the kind of thing where you can go from approval, which is probably pretty simple, right? Because if you're going on someone else's grant with solar, I don't know what the deal is, unless the town has a rule in place that bans modular data centers, which is something you can do because it's part of regulating a broad industry. Boom. But I see it this way. You brought up Death Star. I'm going to make a video about this to help people understand what it is. And it's going to be hyperscale is a Death Star. Modular is a Star Trek picture with 2 triples. Star Trek.
Oh, no.
Hyperscale, modular. It's a Star Trek picture with 20 triples. Right? And it's going back and forth so you can see these tiny little things are just spreading all over. And that's the danger, is it looks easy. Right? So 1 or 2 of those somewhere condensed without using a bunch of land, probably not going to hurt many people unless there's an environmental accident, which is always an if when any industry is involved. Right? But we don't know what their intention is, but I think their intention is to quit having to worry about all of us stopping their hyperscale data center. And also, what company is behind this little company?
I can't even remember the name, but they're
It's
owned
a
by,
laptop.
no, it's like Nova.
What am I who's behind?
They're out of Denver.
Yeah, they're out of Denver and they're owned by Citadel, which is a giant bank. And the other banks that are own it also run our Federal Reserve. So this is like the top of the banking industry, basically funding these companies. The reason why they're doing it is because there's a credit expiring basically in like July 5th. And so everyone needs to just put down money on these construction projects. You can prove out you've paid 5% of the cost of construction, then you can get that credit. So if they can just plug in and just set that container down, you're good. You got the huge grant, you get all your funding, so they're all like hyper speed trying to pivot now and collect those credits before they expire.
Yes,
So-
that explains, thank you.
Responding to your comment about how you felt like you're being subdued, the public's being subdued. This is a common trend we're seeing across Wisconsin in public comments being limited after data center proposals have been made public. So in the township of Beloit, after the proposal was made public, the comment was limited from 3 minutes to 2 minutes and to actionable items only. And so, despite residents of the township repeatedly asking for data centers to be added to the agenda for conversation so that they can raise concerns and questions to their elected officials, the town chair and staff has refused. So we have had the gift of time for the last 3 months of knowing this proposal is going to be dropping, and we have had no opportunities to speak in the public forum. They've also limited the Plan Commission public comment to a total duration of 30 minutes. So whenever that hits there, unless the chair's discretion and they want to hear more. But they don't want to hear more. They've done similar in Beaver Dam, limiting it to 2 minutes for 20 minutes total, only 10 speakers. And during that time, they went from one hyperscale data center into a second one. So even whether it's modular or hyperscale, once you get one, they want to add more. And then in the town of Turtle, which is our second, third, fourth, proposal, when that came on the agenda, they limited from 3 minutes to 90 seconds.
Similar thing, like just now, so we found out in September, we just got the injunction 2 weeks ago. And then just now, for our city council meetings on Tuesday, now they're limiting our public input to 20 minutes total, so we're gonna have 10 speakers. And they've put it on the agenda that we can't complain, criticize, make any sort of allegations, any sort of negative comment about our leaders, that we can't reference anything that has already had a public hearing, aka they're trying to get us to stop talking about the data center that they only gave us a whopping 4 months to talk about, or like to even know about, and haven't addressed any or like all the questions.
You're going to be shocked by this. In Menominee, when there was a proposal, when it was sent, when the annexation application came in, 40 days later was the first time this was that the data center was on the agenda for an annexation rezoning hearing in Menominee. That was August 4th. The next time it was on the agenda was December 1st, and that was about proposal for a new data center ordinance, and it was just about moving it to the Plan Commission. So that was on the agenda. The next time it was on the agenda was a month later when they passed that, the initial version of it. Okay? Then they had asked the public for input. But it wasn't until April 9th that there was a meeting where they put it on the agenda again. So from June annexation application to now, the data center has been allowed to be talked about by citizens 4 times. Greg, you have a question? Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Greg Whitmore, and actually, I'm here today because there's a large-scale solar project in Barron County, southern Barron County, 900 acres, right where our family homestead is. It's been there about 100 years, and that's the approximate size of 680 football fields, to put that in perspective. And so I became aware of this roughly 6 weeks ago. That being said, 2 years ago, our family was approached by this very same company, and we said no, because my father, just in disclosure, my father's has passed 10 years ago. My mother is in assisted living. I manage the estate. It's about 200 acres or so. And so we said no as a family. We didn't want to do that. I thought that was the end of it until 6 weeks ago, when neighbors started getting these letters. And in the letters, it said, hi, we'd like to, in the spirit of being a good neighbor, right? And so it's like, who are these people, right? We said no once. I actually I took a picture of it and shredded the letter because it didn't hit me what was going on until the neighbor called me and said, do you know about this? I said, what are you talking about? No, they really want to do this. And then I really read it and saw what was happening. And it was all laced in this language of good neighbor and spirit of collaboration, blah, 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 blah. So I started asking, the internet, what is this? And then I found out some of the very things you all are talking about. So I immediately wrote my county board, the person who represents our area in the county board, who I've known since high school. She hired me for my first job 30-something years ago. So she's been around. And so she said, she gave me some real just kind of nuts and bolts and told me, like, this is, she knew about it, but she didn't disclose a lot. And then she said, maybe a day or two or so later, that this company was going to be speaking to the county board. May 18th, which was approximately 2 weeks after this. I was like, great, I'm going to be there. Disclosure, I live in California. I'm managing this estate from California. You better believe I got myself on a plane to be there. As I was on the plane the day before, oh, they're not coming. Because I had, and I don't know this, but given what you all are saying, I had already started organizing my neighbors. Some neighbors I haven't spoken to in probably 2 decades. And I was like talking to these folks, and we were all of one like mind. So then guess what? I decided to hold a town hall meeting in our house that night instead of going to the county board. And we weren't allowed to talk at the county board. We were told we could only listen to them speak. Meanwhile, I'm telling everybody, write your elected officials, right? Tiffany, write Armstrong, write the governor, write your senators, and so on. And so, it's interesting because Tiffany's saying before farmland preservation, he's actually said this. He stated it last week with Trump. Armstrong I've written 3 times. He ignored me 2 times until I posted a Facebook post about my father's history and my mother's history. It was on my father's, would have been his 92nd birthday. In less than a week, it got 67,000 views because I made it public. And it also got something like 1,000 likes and 400 interactions, meaning the people in this little tiny village of less than 300 people, the expanse is wide about the people who care about it. So I wrote Armstrong just this week, and I said, just letting you know, because I had asked him if I could meet with him one-on-one. And I said, this is what's happening. And they said, we've since created a Facebook page, 136 people.
I'm sorry to cut you off. But, well, I need you to hang on, because several of our panelists who are also doing the breakouts
Yeah.
have to leave at, what, 2:45?
Yeah.
So we need to, we need to be, because they're driving 4 hours.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay. So I just wanted you to read, I just wanted to basically say, Armstrong did write me back, finally, and he says, I see my role at this time to a great degree as attempting to extract as much monetary benefit for the township, county, and local school district as I'm able to through development agreements.
Well, that's honest.
That's, and then he talked to me as if I know that, he said, I know this isn't what you want to hear, as if I'm 10 years old.
I think what we can learn from that is that it doesn't matter whether it's something we find beneficial as a development or not, right? Because a lot of people see solar as a huge benefit. But in transparency and due diligence and the public voice need to be involved in all of it, whether it's good or not. Right? All right, we're gonna need to move on because I need to give these guys an opportunity. I don't want them to have to leave any more than a few minutes later than they need to leave. Okay? So let's go ahead and give them a hand. We're going to tell a 5-minute story, and then we're going to move into our breakouts. Right, Ken? It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going to go.
Yeah. Oh, when are you supposed to do yours? Oh, I know we're behind. Yes. All right, so listen up. All right. Once again, Prescott will be doing financial. He'll be right here. Okay. Winona, where are you going to go?
I go back there. I go in that weird little hidden spot back there too.
Winona's going to be back there. Some way that there was going to be like adjustments to how we flowed based on what you guys were engaging in and what you wanted to learn. And I think what we have done that was different than how it was planned has a benefit to it. That whole message from last night of it happens for a reason, everything happens for a reason. You've heard about impacts, you've heard about transparency, you've dug in on a couple of different subjects. And I think the whole purpose of this movement, Uniting West Wisconsin, is to get the region moving in a direction. And the people who are going to have to be the impetus for that are us, right? Are there going to be leaders in certain communities who help take the lead with that? There are. And when there are, we need to come around them, right, and support their action, because when that action is successful, then it's something that someone else might emulate, right? So we need to do that. But what that means is that I think we got to think about what is it coming out of here that we need to do. And that's a broad question, but this is true brainstorming, okay? I'm a theater person, right? People who are like true creatives, I don't mean true creatives like really true creatives. I mean, if you're really committed to the creative process, brainstorming means saying anything that comes to mind and writing it down and nobody commenting on it. That's literally what it is. It's getting as many ideas down as you can with no judgment. It also means we don't react. We don't provide commentary. All right. But what we need to do is a way to document this information. So we're going to write these on there, or yeah. You need that for us already? Put a plug on here where people can see it. We're going to want to write small. Because what's going to happen generally is it's going to be quiet for a minute, and then someone's going to shout something out, and then it might be a little, and eventually at some point it's going to start popping, right? That's kind of how this works. And when it does, we just want to keep going. We want to push through because sometimes the best ideas come later. And the reason they come later is because everything that got said before all of a sudden leads to an idea that nobody would have had otherwise. Okay? All right. So, yes. What's your name again?
Wendy.
Wendy, that's right.
Okay. Develop relationships with local and state elected officials and candidates.
Relationships with officials and candidates. Let's put that.
Oh, yes.
That is so important. Yes, Janice?
Relationships with our elected officials, like both recognizing how hard their work is and supporting them and holding them accountable.
Okay, so support and accountability for reps. Sometimes it might go slow. If you want to write yours down so you don't forget it, that's great. Ben?
Exposing yourself to new ideas and ways of doing things. Part of the reason we're here is because we've been doing things the same way for too long, over and over again. So educating yourself and helping each other get educated about different ways and techniques we can use to fight back.
Yeah, Holly?
Building more civic engagement.
More civic engagement. And I hear that as two things. I hear that as taking responsibility on ourselves. I hear that as taking also the responsibility to get others engaged. And I also hear that as convincing or pressuring our officials to engage them more. Your name?
I'm Dieter.
Dieter, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Join local orgs like Hive Collective, Democratic Socialists of America, GROW.
Just join local action.
Get involved. Get organized.
Yep.
Get organized.
Yeah, the more we're connected to each other or to groups, and the more groups connect to each other, the more power we share, right? What's your name, sir?
Steve.
Steve.
With the first two up there on elected appointed officials and politicians, I would like to put an emphasis on stressing ethics.
Yeah.
I'll accept and snaps and things for feedback. What's your name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay, nice to have you.
We need outlets of rage and frustration so that they can be expressed in a constructive way so that
Constructive outrage.
fuel our action against those bad feelings without
Yes.
selling into and harming relations with.
Constructive rage outlets. That sounds like that should be a rock band name.
You guys have rage rooms here?
Not yet.
We did in Prayer.
And then they closed it and I was furious. Pilar.
I want to see some kind of a short form, one-page top 10 type listicle for county boards or town boards for this situation where he couldn't get his 7 minutes of commentary out. There's something to hand them that gives them a sense of like angst about maybe I should not be going down this road. Like the top 10 warning signals that you're about to be in bed with a not good situation. Or,
Propaganda.
yeah, like propaganda, but I think something that gives them a sense of pause. Since by the time we are aware of it, they've already gone down the road a certain amount.
Mhm.
I want to have them have a certain amount of angst.
Yeah, I think that's important. I'm actually working on something like that, but it's much more complicated.
Oh,
It's a public comment I call 20 questions, where you get a whole bunch of people together, you have a whole bunch of questions that they should have had answers to, that are yes or no questions, and you just start reading them to them. Answer to yourself. Do you know the answer to this? Yes or no? You ask question after question after question, and hopefully you get someone to the point where they're like, maybe I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Danny.
County teams and community organizing trainings.
Yeah. And these are things that are going to be a part of our plan already. County teams. So whatever county you're in, be a part member of that team. It doesn't mean you can't be a member. We're also going to have a neighborhood watch, which is I'll go anywhere in the region to help. Right? Just call me. Joanne.
We need to prioritize health and environment over profit.
Lindsay.
We need to have a more effective way to organize all the organizations. Some sort of database or something where all of the different organizations can put everything that they've learned from their experience into it so that anybody could access that without having to like dig and dig and dig.
Information sharing. Organizational information sharing.
Across.
But also supplement your legislative priorities, so we understand, well, we have this legislative priorities for grow and who else can we partner with?
So yeah, it helps you decide who you're partnering with, right? Yeah. Someone, who are you aligned with?
And where can you build that coalition? Like every new issue. See, this doesn't have to just stay about data centers, right? Reuniting West Wisconsin, and what we're doing here is reuniting on this issue. That doesn't mean there's not another issue we can unite on later, and that might form a different coalition. Janice again.
Did we already say getting the money out of politics?
No.
Money out of politics. Great.
Supporting a political action committee to lobby state and federal.
Okay.
Laws.
PAC for state and federal. Steve, do you have your hand up?
Building relationships with news media, we want to hear from you and we often don't.
Yeah, okay. Relationships with news media, thank you for that.
To that, independent journalists and independent media that aren't controlled by corporations or big companies.
Yeah.
This is fun. You have room for one more on that page out here? Operating? All right, so Teresa.
Update your township's comp plans to make sure you can do all encompassing threats of anything that is in your township.
Yeah, the state of Wisconsin requires that your zoning decisions be based in your comprehensive plan. So if you want to have authority to really highly regulate something, you need to note something in your comp plan. And you need to deal with it in your definitions as well.
Your townships, you can.
Very important. Next.
I'll add a couple things. One, interstate utility tracking, because go for the map line through the thrift list, if your Wisconsin line is starting in Wisconsin and is ending in my town in Pine Island.
Interstate electric connections. Joanne.
I think having a centralized place to gather feedback, because when somebody like Steve, presents something to his local community and they don't publish it, Steve has every right to publish that somewhere else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this is smart. we were talking about that earlier. A smaller group of us were talking about that idea. About how can we create a more mass way of getting public comments out there for the rest of the public to see and engage with. Dieter.
Power mapping.
Power mapping.
Yes.
Explain so people understand that.
So power mapping is, you take a map of, for example, a city, and you put pins on that map, and you label those pins with names of businesses, names of important people, movers, shakers, and you can tie ropes or yarn or string between the different pins to show the relationships between the people or organizations with power. And then you also want to do that so that you can understand the contradictions between the bourgeois interests and the proletariat reality.
Can I elucidate on that a little bit?
Yes, please.
Because we've done power mapping with Grove, and the way they've done it is you've got this big whiteboard, and you list out all the people, right? But you place them, there's those that are already on our side, and they have power. There are people who have power that are not on our side. You also have people who have the potential of having power and are on our side, but they need some education. Then you've got people that they don't have power, they're not necessarily on our side, you can ignore them. And so then you know which individuals in that power map that you need to develop relationships with in order to educate them and bring them over to our side, or you need to be aware of, because we know they have power and we already know they're against us. We need to develop relationships with them for the purpose of understanding what their self-interest is.
Yes.
Because then you know how they're going to think, and you can be a couple steps ahead of them.
What motivates them, right? That's how you influence them. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Because there are people who have the title, right? But they don't have power, right? You could be an older person and have no power other than your vote because you're not connected to any of the owners, right? Or you can't influence any of them. Nicole?
Okay, I actually think maybe some sort of social media strategy between organizations to make easily consumable, true bits of information to get out there for people to see, because the information battle online, at least where I am online, is a winnable battle, but it's not really being won, but I think it can be.
Yeah.
And so, but there's just so much disinformation out there,
Yeah.
and I think that there's a lot of good power here, and a lot of smart people here, and a lot of organizations that can put together good, easy to understand, true bits of information to like get people to start digesting true bits of information a little bit at a time. But I think it has to just be, like, if organizations can coordinate that a little bit, maybe that can help with what people are seeing online.
Can I add one? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I just, you know.
I
didn't want to.
One.
I want to say 100%, no, commitment to 100% accurate information.
Oh, yes.
I am, one of the disinformation doesn't just come from the developers. It comes from our own people, lots of times, who are just spreading something because they came across and they believed it. And it's not true. And I spend a lot of my time in the nominating group, like, well, actually. And some people don't like that, but, you know, it's important to me that it's true information. Even if it gets rid of one of the things people are using as their big argument. Like, we're not going to win if we're arguing from a position that isn't true. Right? Lindsay?
I think goes hand in hand with that, and I feel pretty certain that everybody in this room would be agreeable to a commitment to not using generative like AI and not engaging it where we can, and then making sure that the other people in our lives understand, you know, the negative impacts.
Okay.
Direct, you know, person to person.
I do struggle with that for many reasons. And we have companies like Epic Systems. They have currently like 170 projects under development, and that's for moving medical business, right?
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that. But also, I don't like it when we do say things like that because it puts the onus on individuals. And it's not us, it's developers. And that was something people would come to us when we were in divorce and be like, well, where do you want to do it? I don't care. They need to figure out how to do it responsibly and sustainably, and that's not on me, that's on them. So I do struggle with that. I think AI needs to be careful with it. I think there's a lot of danger with it, but I don't necessarily want to say it's bad because I don't think it is.
Well, then that's just something that we need to, as a group, if we're united, we need to find a common ground about it.
Well,
We're not going to find that today.
I think also differentiate responsible, like responsible necessary.
Yeah, I think we had a little break in the brainstorming a little bit.
But just that there are things that are acceptable usages, but I can guarantee you that like average people are not using it for medical research.
Yeah.
And so they don't need to brainstorm their next protest slogan using ChatGPT when we've got all sorts of creatives that we can utilize.
I would say for now, let's just say, let's respect each other's viewpoints on issues that we prefer to differ on.
100%, no, I was just like, another viewpoint, their viewpoint, or a lot of that.
Absolutely.
We
Holly?
can take careful use. This connects to the other things, but I'd really like to see some emphasis on somehow closing the gaps between residents, like city staff, whoever those people are, and our elected officials, because as far as public information and the way it flows back and forth, I feel like there's just this like divide, and I don't know how to like reach through and like how for them to reach through. Whose responsibility is that?
Yeah.
And so I feel like
Whoever takes the responsibility, whose responsibility it is. That's how I would look at it. Yeah, so I think we need to take responsibility.
no, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Our
Closing the
city,
gap.
like our people that work for with our tax
Chautauqua should also be reaching out to us
Absolutely.
in some kind of way to say, hey, we want your feedback, and this is how you do it, or this is what we're doing, we want feedback.
Yeah.
That's missing a lot of times.
It is, absolutely. Peter?
I think it's an important imperative to create an actual workers' party separate from the capitalist, corrupt two-party system, which has proven time and time again, either of the two parties, to be on the side of the corporations and not on the side of the workers.
Are you already planning workers strike that?
Proletariat party development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Janice?
Public ownership of AI, I think it's something being talked about. I know Bernie's proposed 50% stock belong to the public for ownership of AI companies. And so.
Considering it comes from our data, right?
Right, that's right. That was the justification, is that everything on the internet was developed by people and by the public, and they're taking all that and benefiting from it. It's more the comparison would be taking the oil and profiting off that and not paying us for the oil, which they don't.
Our library system gets all that information gathers and they don't charge us for it, right? They let us have access to it. Danny?
It would also give us a little control over maybe that we would get the medical benefits, or, you know, be able to regulate maybe some of the privacy is a good one, but I was thinking more the commercial part of it. That's kind of preying on people. Sure.
Yeah, I would argue that we limited the data centers to expand into all public facilities, water use, electricity, internet in general. Let's make it all public utilities. Full agree.
We're just putting it all on here now. It's just things we have to determine over time. Danny?
Yeah, data center operations ordinances, which would basically be using these ordinances that have been created in these towns to deal with industrial developments and asking these developers to basically just submit a plan on how you are going to deal with this aspect of your operation and talk through with your town and be transparent with your town. And that's how you get permitted in the town. So I think that's something worth exploring. And I'd also say going after the public financing of data centers through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and the Public Finance Authority that are essentially giving tax breaks and tax incentives to data center developers through state statute.
I would add two more. One, I think establishing, like, what are your groundwork principles? Like one,
Our what?
the groundwork principles.
Yeah, what are our-
foundation,
yeah.
like, are you like principles of environmental justice, for example, or like ACT has others, so similar to like.
So just organizational principles,
Like
right?
organizational principles to like guiding things, but also looking at like what are the legislation efforts being passed. Like my state, Minnesota, is constantly referred to as being the best in the country, which in some things might be true, but I guarantee you that with the data center bills and the ratepayer protection, we're not. We've got a lot of loopholes, and so paying attention to what are the efforts that we do have and checking in with us of like, we keep hearing this, where are the gaps? Because I can guarantee you I would not have been testifying for every single bill this past session to close those gaps if we were in fact the best in the country that keeps getting reported everywhere. So there are some pieces that, yes, could be duplicated, but no, but paying attention to that, so then we can get like the interstate compacts or like these, you know, if this bill is working, let's get it replicated here.
So you said that, I would like you to write down intergovernmental agreements.
Yeah.
Because that's something that is something that is not used enough in Wisconsin. It is there for governments to form rules together and to form little joint commissions together, things of that can cause them to consolidate their own power. That's what happened in Manitowoc County was they came after 3 townships that were neighbors to each other all at once and tried to block each other. Right? And So if you do that, you have an agreement like this, you can prevent that. Wendy?
How about lobbying to enforce antitrust legislation, antitrust laws?
Okay, lobbying to enforce
Yeah, break up
antitrust.
monopolies.
That's mostly the economy right now.
Might sort some things out if we started focusing on that.
These are, I mean, a lot of these things are things that the vast majority of Americans agree on. We're too busy arguing about all the little things we don't agree on.
Well, the word you just said, lobbying for what?
And against antitrust.
Enforcing
Enforcing antitrust, I mean. So then,
Lobbying to enforce?
yeah, to enforce. All right.
Just get rid of one.
Thanks. Lobby against lobby. And we gotta wait for our speech this year.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is really great, guys.
Yeah.
You get to put develop a workers' party on there?
Did you write something about party?
Workers' party?
Just representing the working class. Sarah Stokes.
An idea ahead of November would be to just put out some fact sheets on, because everybody's getting on the data center bandwagon now politically, put out some fact sheets on voting records and, you know, who is actually doing the work and not just putting it on a postcard that they're, you know, sending out with their mail.
Danny
So kind of
mentioned-
like an endorsement, but data center factoids for who we're voting for.
Danny mentioned doing candidate forums
Yeah.
this fall. He's talked about that. So we can get that candidate forums.
Question, what's your environmental review process here?
Not good?
Well, like, when a project comes, do you guys, like, engage, or do you guys?
We try, but we don't have the same laws here as you do in Minnesota. Like, for example, what you guys got an injunction on, we wouldn't get that. There would be no hope.
Park safer down there, there's a whole bunch, your sewer district, but in Wisconsin, and I know it's a lot like this for federal too, but in Wisconsin, you do your application, like the organization would do their application, the DNR is only able to go off what's on that, they cannot look at other things, they cannot ask questions, if they need like elaboration, they can't do that, they have to make their decision based on those exact questions.
And the answer that the developer gave them. That's our
There's no
situation.
independent review required.
Yep. Well, that's something we should lobby to change that.
And more funding for the DNR too.
Yeah. We need to change the DNR operating,
Well,
or we need some more money.
Yeah, it's not.
That's phase 2.
They change, we'll fund them. Yeah.
So not only attend your township meetings and your county board meetings, but also all of their committees, because that's where the stuff is developed, the ordinance are read and recommended to the higher ups. So
Yep.
be very engaged.
We talk about stopping things early, right? How you stop things early is being in the committee meetings. So it never gets anywhere. That's how you stop it early. And that's how you also get what you want forward, is to show up at the committee meetings.
I'm gonna say, Clean Water Act. Currently, states are saying, hey, we already have a Clean Water Act, we don't need to implement anything. However, the government just kind of, just like torn apart, and so it's not tracking anything anymore. So I would say let's bring a state level Clean Water Act part two.
That would include PFAS, because the EPA is not required to monitor PFAS.
In fact, look at everything the EPA has taken apart in the last couple of years and wiped that out all of that.
And
Might be a bit small, get involved with your local neighborhood association if you're not already. If you don't have one, maybe start one, consider starting one. Talk to your neighbors, get your neighbors on board with what you're doing, get them involved so they know what's going on. And then you'll find through that, through doing that process, you'll find other people who are just as passionate about the issues you're fighting, who just know where to start.
more education. More education. I mean about the issue. Did you have one? Oh, Dieter, go ahead.
Yes, support these issues, communities, and indigenous organizations.
Okay.
Very connected.
support of indigenous communities and organizations. We need to be in this fight with them. We absolutely need them in this fight with us. Absolutely.
I think,
Your name, sir?
Carson. I think
Carson.
Back at the scale of like neighborhoods, I think particularly for homeowners, there's like an opportunity there to come together. We're talking about like kind of low municipally owned and controlled, like at the neighborhood level, implementing like solar, so you can kind of sidestep a lot of these electrical issues if you just, as a neighborhood, have like a neighborhood owned low electrical. So that's an idea for like mutual aid in a sense to neighborhood scale electrical grid, I guess. Just an idea.
Janice.
Seems like maybe there would be some opportunity to do something at the state level after November. So I don't know what we could do to make that happen.
Yeah, I think, so Janice is saying after November, and that's true because they're not going to be back in there doing anything until January, right? So,
We'll have a new legislature.
right, we'll have a new legislature. So usually that first few weeks, first couple months of a new legislature is where you get things, that's where you get new things, big changes. So that's important, yeah. So focus, how do we want to word that?
Just put after November,
State level,
State level.
lobbying with legislators.
Yeah, we need goals. Yeah, we need to figure out what those goals are going to be for that.
Data center regulation.
For data centers, okay. So for data centers, okay. Well, I mean, the way we introduce ourselves is by performing actions, being engaged in the election. Yeah, absolutely. So that's part of it.
Organizations here that are already doing that.
Yeah,
Grow and Wisconsin.
We already have a lady candidates on the list, so that.
All right, Dieter.
Sure. Developing a community defense force for mutual aid and direct action.
No, you guys call yourself?
We don't have our community defense force.
Hard.
Teresa.
Develop, if you guys are worried about water in your wells, start testing now, work with your neighbors. The University of Stevens Point will help you develop a testing plan. Our township, we gathered samples and our clerk ran it over there to save on the shipping. If you guys have any questions, you can talk to me.
Yeah, so you're getting baselines, and it doesn't have to just be about water. Do baseline soil tests, anything that you can test, so that you know, so that you can prove if there's a change. That's what's happening in Beaver Dam. They're being said, well, it's not us. No, it's just happens everywhere they build a data center. The water table all of a sudden just changes. It's not you.
I know it kind of adds to a lot of things we've already said, but humanize yourself. Go meet people. Go shake their hand. Go meet them. Make them see you with a human, because until then, they won't. An email doesn't humanize you. Go meet them face to face. Shake their hand. Make them realize who you are.
There is, if you know any hydrologists or like engineering companies, if you're friendly with them, there is like a test that they can do that would show like if they were to use all of the water that they have with their existing water permit that they have, what is the radius of impact of the water table that would be lower? Like you can ask them to do that. Obviously, it would cost money, so if you are friendly with someone and can pull some strings, but do that in advance as much as you can, because then you can get a radius of impact to know in advance. The DNR here cannot ask in advance as citizens to try to figure out where you can try to get that information so you have that pool.
In Port Washington, we have a woman running for Congress who is an ally of our organization who was a hydrologist, like a leading hydrologist with the federal government. So she's an excellent resource for people on that subject too. I forget what I was going to say. Danny?
Mandatory environmental impact statements in
Yes.
Okay, Scott.
Kind of piggyback on a few things, but
see there's people in this room who don't vote the same way in November, right? From others. I found that in the entire movement. So yeah, so again, continue to focus on common ground, break the two-party system. Lindsay.
We need to do preemptive fundraising to make it possible for small communities to get testing done and things like that. Because there's different, like, how hard that they needed to get at the open records requests and stuff in the nominee, how incredibly expensive that is. And so many people don't have the money to do that kind of thing, but mutual aid, then we can find a way to successfully funnel that money where it needs to go so that people can take quick action when it's their turn to do.
I would say legal action as well.
Yeah.
We need to do the same thing with getting new people to run for state and federal positions. Like, we need to, like, you know a candidate, you want them to come to your community, you know, you come stay at my house, we'll give you a dance party, a bunch of people want to hear you. You know, like, we need to start doing that because otherwise we're never going to do it like this. We weren't born into political families, we weren't born into these corporate things, like.
On top of that too, if you know somebody in your community who you think would be great at representing your community in office, encourage them to run if they're not already looking to do so too. For all levels of office, not just state and federal. We need local, we need school boards, we need townships, all of those.
We need to lobby the state to give more local control back, especially the towns and villages.
Yeah.
They're being left out hanging to dry.
Also, one note with that, remember too, when we're thinking of the power mapping, when you're advocating for somebody local to run, remember that you can, having somebody that's a community organizer run for mayor could be something, but their most powerful spot might actually be the mover shaker on the ground. So remember not to forget the power of being a mover shaker on the ground. You want people with good heads that can listen to the mover shakers on your councils.
That's one thing, and that's one thing that came up with me. There were people who asked me to run for council this year, and one reason I didn't is because I had such good relationships with the people in the city council who were like listening to me anytime I called. They were calling me and asking me questions. I just didn't think it was worth giving that up just to have one vote. When I had 6 people talking to me regularly.
Yeah, you have to do that.
Plus I don't want to do it.
Organizing abilities and I've got my fingers in a lot of different organizing groups, and if I ever decide to try, I have to do all of them. And that was fun.
Well, you don't have to leave all of them.
Yeah, but open record wants to do it.
Yeah. Oh, here's something that has been on my mind is working toward a regional data center approval process. Trying to get communities to agree to a certain procedure. This is what we do first, this is what we do second, this is what we verify, this is what we demand disclosure of, including an application that everyone uses, right? So that because if we're really to protect the area, having rules that they can't get away from no matter what community they choose. Well, I didn't know. There's nothing really that's standard other than what kinds of information you're trying to get. And it still depends. It depends on your community. It depends on your comprehensive plan. It depends on how much shoreland you have or farmland you have or...
I'm just saying, for people, there's a standard 12-page ordinance. And then there's the...
That's a permit ordinance. Yeah, right. Permit.
Yeah, that's an operating ordinance. And there's a set of appendices that are specific to each
Right.
township.
Yeah.
But they say this ordinance is pretty boilerplate.
Yeah. Yep. Well, data centers is CUPs are the only approach for data centers, so it is a little more, a little different. And the other thing about that is it goes between municipalities, right? You got towns, but then also counties, or excuse me, cities and villages, right? So there are definitely going to be structural differences. It doesn't work quite as well as with Caicos, where it's basically all rural. Right? Peter.
Pass laws to make it too expensive to build data centers in the first place.
Yeah, that's just, we're take away the tax breaks, is the first part, right? No incentives. All right, so here, before, I don't wanna, like, we could go on and on like this forever, we've got how many pages? What is really important to do, and what we did, if you notice on the schedule, it says optional overtime, right? And what that just means is, people can leave whenever they need to leave, right? But before we go any further, I wanna just point out, up here, you have these three QR codes. One is to follow us on social, if you're not. One is to support the cause with donations. This was not an inexpensive foray into organization these last couple of days. And it's very important that we not just cover the cost of that, but that we go beyond that, right? And that we begin to fund what's coming next, right? Because these are gonna take money, right? It's mostly people power, but you still have to have money to make the people power happen. So, not just everyone here doing their part to donate what they can to make it happen, but getting the word out to others to help them understand the power that comes from, we have 500 people on our Uniting Western Wisconsin page. If everyone on that page, gave $10 or $20 a month, that would sustain a lot of action, right? So you can help by getting people on that page, and you can help by getting people to say, hey, I'm going to donate $10 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month. Or someone who says, I got 10 grand, I care about this, I'm going to do it. And then sign the petition. If you go to that page, actually let's do that right now really quick, because I want you to see this before you leave. If you can, use that out of the way, okay, Ben's going to grab it so that people can scan that, sign the petition. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't connect, you can just take a picture of this, and you should be able to connect to it later also. Yeah, we're just taking one of these.
I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the petition today than I did yesterday. So you see what we have put together for some of the actions that we want to see happen. If you go to that page and you go to the petition, you just have to fill out your information and click through to sign the petition. But if you look at this, it first starts out with just the preamble about hyperscale data centers. And then it says regional challenges require regional solutions, and it relies on regional cooperation rather than asking any town, village, city, or county to navigate it alone. And then we are saying we're demanding, we're calling our local and state leaders for transparency with the regional process that ensures the public has access to timely, complete, and meaningful information before major decisions are made. Accountability, clear standards that hold both developers and public officials accountable for decisions whose consequences may last for generations. Protection, thoughtful safeguards to protect the waters, farmland, landscapes, infrastructure, local character, and quality of life that define Western Wisconsin. Some people balk at that because they say, well, let's just not have data centers. There are situations that will happen where you won't be able to stop it. It's going to happen somewhere. So you still have to put protections in place that protect you when that happens, right? Protect you from the worst impact. Local voice, meaningful public participation and recognition of the people who live with the consequences of major decisions is a meaningful voice in shaping them. To advance these principles, we call for a minimum 12-month moratorium on hyperscale data center development throughout Western Wisconsin, adopted town by town, village by village, city by city, county by county. We're saying that because the state's not doing it. And all a moratorium is a timeout so that you can switch your rules, get them in place, and make the changes that need to be made before they come knocking on the door and try to submit an application. And then our next thing is the West Central. We're calling on the West Central Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission to convene a series of public meetings throughout the region to host a shared conversation about our future. So there is a regional planning commission. Not every region has one, we do. So we're asking them to get involved. We don't know if they will, but we're asking them to. And I'm sure we're going to have a plan for how we can make that happen. I'm sure we'll organize something at some point where we all go over to that meeting and we tell them what we need from them. Then the next one is going back to them again for facilitation and development of recommended minimal common regional standards for each form of political unit, rooted in a commitment to transparency, accountability, protection of local voice. Okay? We're not asking the plan commission and data centers to tell everyone to. They're not going to do that, right? Because they're going to expect local governments to be able to make up their minds on their own. But they can at least give us recommended standards for those people who want to put protections in place. Okay? A commitment from towns, villages, cities, and counties to adopt those minimum regional standards prior to the conclusion of a moratorium in order to present a united front, and subsequent discussion and consideration of use of intergovernmental agreements, that we talked about there briefly, to enhance the level of protection members experience while formalizing their commitment to each other as neighbors over and above developers. So that's the petition that you can sign and advance to people and encourage them to read it and sign it. And throughout the region, we're looking at really focus on western Wisconsin people on that because they're going to get addresses in there, things of that nature. And then at the bottom of that page, it had 3 things you could choose. One was to be here today, which you've already done. The next was you click to say, I want to join a county team organizing for protections of data centers in my area. What counties? Who's here from Dunn County? Raise your hands. How about Barron County? Barron County? Okay. Excellent. Chippewa County? Eau Claire County? Everywhere. St. Croix County? Pierce County? Polk County? Apple County? Buffalo County? No? Rusk County? Woo! Yeah, Clark County? We got one back there, Trumbull County. That's still, we got most of them. There were only a couple we didn't have anybody from. That's tremendous. Oh, you can go beyond that.
We got some early too. So
Huh?
we got some folks above already. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just going through kind of a swath. All right. So I think before we wrap up, I think it's important that we, the whole idea of this is to create a regional movement, a regional cooperation. Oh, yes, I did want to tell you, is he here? Ken was here and he was going to share a story with us, but he literally said to me, Blaine, I don't think the mood is right for this because I think people have something else going on that's happening that's good, and I want to just let it go through. So he came, and he's been super supportive of this whole thing, and we just want to thank you for understanding and recognizing the moment.
Happy to defer to all the good work that's being done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll go buy one of Ken's books.
There you go.
All right, so it would be remiss for us to leave without a plan for what we do next. Because how many of you are ready and willing to become a regular part of this conversation? Right. And I think the voices in this room are ready to help shape the direction of things and to bring new people in that will help shape the direction of things. And so that's what we need to talk about. We need to talk about how do we keep this part of it moving forward, all right? What does that look like? And I would really like to hear your suggestions for that.
Well, the bakery was really good.
Well, really, we're going to bring it on a little treat. Yes, what's your name?
Sarah,
Sarah, thank you for being here.
I would like to be part of it, but it just depends on time.
Yeah.
If it can be weekend stuff, that's great, but I know a lot of people work during the week and have their weekend just things that they want to do.
Yeah. So let's just do what we did before. Let's just get some ideas up on board for how we can start at least to build a structure moving forward to continue to have these conversations. Joanne.
I think having a newsletter email list that would allow people to know what's going on, and also when there are things like petitions or other actions, just being able to make sure that they're informed, so that, like, when you can only do like one thing, sure, you can only sign, you have 5 minutes, you can sign a petition in 5 minutes, you know? You have one Saturday that you'll give up for this, you know, to knowing what that is, because then that is an excellent point. There's only so much time that any of us have. I love her. We all work and barely assign for
Yeah, absolutely.
That it balance, maybe that too, is like, I have this particular challenge or interest. I'm good at writing ordinances. I'm a dog with a bone. I really want to follow the money.
Identify strengths, interests, and expertise.
And we can include that in power mapping as well, like for our own power mapping.
Sarah Stooks. Sarah, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to capture everybody who is like having momentum with this, do we want them to say yes to a county team and it doesn't bind people?
Yeah.
And then we can sort out who has what capacity from there?
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
want to lose this awesome momentum after
Right.
everybody goes home today.
We do want everybody to join the county
Say yes
team.
to the county team, and it isn't high stakes yet.
Oh, that's true, that's good, yeah.
Right?
To just kind of expound on that, like just, yeah, I'd be happy to have one-to-one conversations with anyone about that.
Yeah, so just go ahead and click on, do you want to be on the county team, and then it's a conversation about whether you have capacity to come later, right? Absolutely. But also, get the word out to people who you think would be good on your county team, who you think have the ability to do that, to be part of it, to be part of it. Someone, you need to leave right now. Joanne?
I just want to point out too that there's also a core team that Danny's also kind of one of the leads on, and Blaine is one of the leads on. And so if you also, or instead of want to be on your county team, being on the core team, that's going to take more capacity, but that does exist as well. And I would recommend contacting Danny about that.
Yeah, and I think there's openness to what a core team looks like moving forward too. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be what it is right now.
Yeah.
Yes, Sue?
I would take off on the county teams and Data Center 101. There's a lot of folks that weren't able to come to any of these meetings.
Yep.
And so you could do that by a large group or small group. But having regular meetings set on a Zoom, I think would just, or a Facebook group or something, would start getting people into.
Yeah, Danny and I were talking about that when we did a couple Zoom calls this week about trying to do something like that regularly. Maybe not weekly, but maybe every other week. My job takes me all the way up to Burnett County, down to Trempealeau County, over to Monroe County. So I've thought about perhaps setting myself up on my schedule where I'm going to be at this coffee shop for 2 hours in Rice Lake on this day, and then 2 hours in Eau Claire on this day, and 2 hours in River Falls or Hudson on this day. And if people just want to come and ask questions, I'm trying to figure that out.
Like trainers.
I've got paperwork to do anyway, so you just do that.
Yeah, train the trainer.
Train with Blaine.
And like,
Complain to Blaine.
I do that anyway. Sometimes, like, some of us might be able to do some actual physical things as well. I think that, for example, the Hive would probably be willing to do an actual data center download sort of situation in Claire, and there's probably other people here, like, who know I could totally.
I think regular data center 101s around the region are definitely probably in the future. What do you think, Danny? Yeah.
There are so many people that would want to be able to travel and be able to talk to people when it comes down to lodging and gas, right?
Yeah.
So that's been a thing, and like I'm fortunate enough that I can be able to do this quarterly. That's awesome, but that's a big consideration as well.
Yeah.
But I agree 100%.
No, but here's, yeah, go ahead.
And we just also, like,
that's the whole idea of building expertise.
Yeah.
And the way you learn is by digging in, and the way you dig in is by looking things up and asking questions.
I'll make a suggestion, since I don't live here, reaching out to your industry leagues in the area. This is, we're a beer state, that's our export. We need to get our beer people involved. What do they use to make beer? Water.
You get cheese people involved too.
Yeah, cheese people, beer people, we got a lot of whiskey down by us. Get them involved, people who need the energy, who need the water, need the land, get them involved.
And tourism people need to be involved. I don't think they understand yet.
Your golf course people.
I don't think they understand the impact that a data center construction will have over a 30 to 40 mile radius at least of a small town building a data center. It will eat up every hotel room. It will eat up every Airbnb for years.
And it's a bit sensitive in a way, and I'm sure anybody who sat in on Prescott, you probably talked about that. Businesses are allergic to data centers.
Yeah,
They don't want to buy it.
No, nobody wants to be a neighbor of a data center. They come in saying, we're going to attract other businesses, and they do not. They repel them. Because no one wants to be building at the same time they are, because it's dangerous. Dieter?
Do we have someone from the Farmers Union here?
Not today. Sarah was here. She ended up out.
I was going to say, every part of agriculture is affected by that.
Yeah.
Not just watering your crops, but spreading pesticides, spreading fertilizer, spreading your seed, cover crop. Even when it comes to animals, like every single part of agriculture is affected by it.
Were you at that last night?
No, but
Okay.
I just finished my degree in agronomy management through CTC.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there was a member of the Farmers Union there yesterday who read to us their policy statement, and if you didn't hear it, look it up. It is brilliant. It is what every city and town and village's policy should be about data centers, because it basically is saying, we'll think about letting you do this if you're the best neighbor you can possibly be, and this is what that's supposed to like. And I guarantee you that the process they went through, from what I've understood and dug into, the process they went through to come up with that policy was way more deliberative than any legislative body in this state or any city council or town board has ever put into almost anything they've passed. It is a really heavily democratic process. Steve?
As a member of the Farmers Union who has written some of those policies, it's really an exciting experiment in democracy.
And I think we should elevate that knowledge of that, to be honest with you. I personally think we should advance knowledge of their policy.
Well, I will be broadcasting that on our Facebook page back home to get the attention of the Minnesota side, so.
And anyone that eats can be a member of the Farmers Union.
Yep, that's right.
Anyone that eats?
Anyone that eats.
I'm joining the Farmers Union because I eat.
That's what I was going to say.
Steve?
Yeah, I have a question for Steve first.
Yeah.
Could you put that in your eye on Dunn?
You put what?
The mission statement for Farmers Union.
Well, the recording from last night is on Dunn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you can watch it.
the writing.
Writing
Having
it?
it written down.
I can post it. We can post it on United West Wisconsin. Do you have Facebook? Or do you not?
No.
We should everyone has turned in their email to us in some form, correct? Can we send out a link to that in our emails?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
We could do that in the next steps email that goes out tomorrow or Tuesday.
Excellent.
But anyway, the point I wanted to make, when I went to that Dunn County P.R.D. meeting, the committee meeting, the map of Dunn County, I don't know how many townships there are, but let's say 24.
It's about 20, it's 23, I think.
Yeah. Well, about 16 of those townships are targets to have a modular data center. So can you imagine living in a Bucolic township, near a creek or river, and having a little modular data center pop up in your rural home? That is the potential. And that scares the heck out of me.
Yeah. It worries me too, because I don't, like I said, that's in an area in a certain way, a certain distance for people, isn't gonna have nearly the impact that most of these big ones do, but I don't think that's what they're going for. I think they're going for how can we deploy as many of these as fast as we can, because people are getting too freaking organized. And maybe that's why they came here first, but Wendy.
So I published a monthly newsletter called Why It Matters, and it's on a wide variety of topics. But my focus right now is on data centers. I even interviewed Nate, I can't remember the pronunciation of his last name, he's the CEO of Pierce about data centers. And so the point being, if anybody wants to receive that newsletter, or if you have information that I could use to augment what I've already learned, let's talk. But if anybody wants to be on that email list, it comes out the 15th of the month. And so Monday I've got one in the hopper waiting for me to get back to me before I send it out. But then that's another avenue for keeping people informed. And I'm breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, starting with what is a data center? And then another whole issue of what are the risks?
What's the name of your paper?
It's called Why It Matters. And I started it because I ran for Pierce County Supervisor District 8 and against a very well-known veterinarian and got 46% of the vote. So that was a win to get that much when I was unknown. But the Pierce County Journal had agreed to allow me to run a column, if I won, in the newspaper called Why It Matters. And I decided, okay, I didn't win, so it's not going in the paper, but that doesn't have to stop me from at least producing something. And then letting people know, hey, if you want to be on this, please spread it around, and anyone else that wants to just send me an email, and I'll add it in the email list.
What's your email online?
Unfortunately, I do not do Facebook. I had my identity stolen.
On YouTube.
I'm not on YouTube either. If somebody wants to show me how to do that. But, and I
I want to right here, I was going to say, because I wanted to mention before anybody else left, during my second breakout, we were talking about different organizations to look into. And so I just wanted you guys to see these. The big one that I really want to plug is Honor Here. They're amazing.
You just take a picture of that page and then you
Yeah.
get all that information.
They have a lot of that consolidated, easy to read, easy to understand information on single page flyers. Anybody who's done them, they've just got so much information. They're really, really great. But if you wanted to write like your email down so people can sign up for that would be awesome. Definitely an article up here.
They're all up there, yeah.
So the only question I have left, yes, Sarah?
No.
Oh.
Okay. One thing too, just knowing that this is a farm area, just like where I'm from, I don't know if Wisconsin puts out a farm transition survey. Minnesota, the southeastern part where I'm from, they just released theirs, and the area that I'm at, the respondents, they're looking at 90% of the farms in my area are looking to transition to farm in the next 3 to 7 years. That is a shit ton of acre, that's a giant beacon to the developers and data centers. And this first tidal wave that we've experienced has been just like exhausted as a resident leader. I mean, I already know the developer is getting more purchase agreements like surrounding our existing plot right now. So don't forget the farm transition plans for your existing farms. Have those conversations about what are the resources for your aging farmers that want to keep that farmland as a farm, but have adult children that do not want to continue it. How do you keep that? What are your resources for emerging farmers to get it into the hands of your small farms that can't get the land, to people that want to get into farming, but they're not from a farm family, conservation, easements, other ways. Make sure that you're having that conversation beforehand.
Yeah,
lot.